Bruchim Habayim, which means hello in Hebrew. Today's episode is going to be the Jewish episode. Much like Christian records, aka gospel records, have a wonderful history with some wonderful music that's not very well known. I'm doing the same thing, but I'm doing it with mi Yehudim, my people, mi gente, Jews. There is not a lot of Jewish records out there that are religious and interesting, but I have a couple. It's a bit of a passion of mine, and I am trying to go ahead and share that with the rest of you. So today, we're going to get deep into the whole Jewish psychedelic, soulful, funky thing that was happening in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and beyond. So come join me as we do this. Now, one thing I want to talk about is I got no motivations here. I'm not trying to recruit somebody to a religion, anything like that. Just like with gospel records, which I love gospel records. Just like with gospel records, I have the same love for any other record in which the people are singing with a passion. This is just another religion where another group of people are singing with their own passion about their own love of their own God, and it comes across on this wax, and I've fallen in love with feeling that passion, and I want to share with you. So come on, let's go ahead and listen to this. Shall we? Let's go. First record up is Jerry Katz with Kodesh. Kodesh is a word for holy. Jerry Katz was a dude down from Houston. He was working with a lot of contemporary sounds and somehow got in contact with this small label up in New York City and finagled a way to put together this record. Everything's in Hebrew. Actually, one of the interesting things about this record is the sleeve itself is backwards, and that's because Hebrew is done in the opposite direction of English. So instead of going left to right, they go right to left. Right, left, yeah, that sounds about right. This album has more of a pop psych sound with some deep words that I don't understand because I forgot a lot of the Hebrew that I learned. Next record up is Ron Eliran's Double Life, recorded live at the Jericho Club in Los Angeles. Ron Eliran was an Israeli-born lounge singer. The backing group on this one is called the International Scene. There's not a lot of information on them. All the research I've done have shown that this is the only recording they got, but they are solid. They are what make this album. Ron Eliran, I can't stress enough, he's a bit cheese. He's very much Vegas. Matter of fact, he's the first Israeli to play in a Las Vegas casino. This was recorded in 77. It sounds more like it came out in the early 70s. There's a song on it called Ofra, which is a slow burner with this guitar that just makes you want to nod your head like this and smoke some weed in the back alley behind the Hebrew school with all your friends because you're skipping it because you found something else to get your way up to God.
עפרה כשהתעצבת עלים כמשו
Next up is The Hush of Midnight by Cantor Ray Edgar and the Zamfir Choral. Now the guy who put this music together, his name's Charles Davidson. He's a composer, he was Jewish, but he was also working with a lot of secular people in making music that way. He had this idea of trying to bring in the youth through rock and roll music. The Hush of Midnight is actually a collection of work from a poet named Ruth Brin. It's based on a service called the Service of Penitence, which is the service that happens just before Rosh Hashanah, which is the Jewish New Year. The name, the Hush of Midnight, stands for the first minute of the new day in which we began this prayer, if you're a religious guy or girl. A big shout out to Rob Geddes over at Princeton Record Exchange for sending me this record just on the strength of knowing the kind of stuff that I collect. Next record up is Songs Soul by Shimon and Ilana with the Hebrew Baroque Roll Ensemble. Now, anytime you find a religious record with the words rock and roll mixed in, there is a strong chance that thing is going to be funky as fuck. This is a great example of that. Shimon and Ilana were a married couple. They were both on the folk scene back in the 50s, started to make music as a duo, made a bunch of kid stuff, made a bunch of religious stuff. They get around to about 1970, and they make this particular album. This album is a collection of psalms from King David. They have a trio of musicians behind them that look like they're all college students in 1970. They're playing harpsichord, they're playing drums, and they're playing a combination of electric guitar and bass. The tracks on here are real lo-fi. They have some interesting drums. So because they went so lo-fi, it just kind of added the extra element of like, to it that really kind of makes it sound super nice. Next record up is the Stanley Miller Band with American Simcha. Stanley Miller is a very nice chiropractor living in New York. And back in the late 70s, he had a group of other Jews that were musicians, and they put together 3 albums. This guy, he was a flautist, but he was basically a prog flautist. There's echo effects, there's beats, there's psychedelic freakout on here. There is so much interesting stuff. Next record up is Yeshiva Brass, arranged and conducted by Muddy Parnes. The Yeshiva Brass, as you might imagine from the name brass, is a brass record with a lot of Jewish sounds and songs to it. It was put together by Muddy Parnes. It's got a lot of religious stuff to it, and there's a couple bangers on it that are not that. One song with a really strong up-tempo drum break that's honestly like a b-boy Jewish jam, and then another song called Lev Tahor, which is really just a great, slow banger. Now, one of the interesting things about this record beyond the music is the story behind it. You see, Muddy Parnes' name is on the front of this, but he's not the only person who did this. He had a partner named Itzi Weisberg. When this came out, somehow Itzi's name got dropped. Well, Itzi got mad. Itzi had beef. Fast forward a few years, Itzi decides to go ahead and bury that hatchet, goes to visit Muddy. Muddy's living in a senior citizen's home. They patch it up, and shortly after, Muddy died. Big relief off of Itzi's chest. All there is for this episode of Dirty Dusty Records. I hope you guys enjoyed this breakdown of a couple of Jewish albums, got something out of it, maybe learned about some new music. If you're not following, please do. Leave some comments. Tell me how much you love this, how much you hate this, how much you wish I'd talked about this, that, and the other. And I will try to do my best to follow what you guys want, because I'm making this for a crowd of you. So thank you so much. Lechitot, which means goodbye.